Hello, Bond fans, and welcome to Diminishing Returns. This week we continue our epic journey through the world of James Bond with The Spy Who Loved Me. Everyone's favourite Bond expert is back, but that doesn't mean he's going to like what we have to say.
Ooh! Oh, I enjoyed that. Who did that?
That was Tomo.
Oh,
Who sent in
Tomo.
our last remix. He did a little James Bond remix of it for us as well.
That's so cool. Oh,
Nice.
awesome.
Thank you, Tomo.
That's
Tomo
great.
fellows.
And sounded kind of funky, which is appropriate for the score of the film that we're going to talk about today, The Spy Who
Yeah.
Loved Me. I'm Dyson, Calvin Dyson, and with me are Saul
Saul Harris.
and Alan.
Turing. Alan Turing.
It's more appropriate when you do it, because with you it's a code name, isn't it, Alan?
Oh, wait, no. It's wrong.
Okay, so, Spy Who Loved Me.
Right. Yes. Spy Who Loved Me. So, third Roger Moore Bond film. Can I give a little bit of history before we get to talking about it?
Yeah.
Right, so there was a 3-year gap between this film and the previous one, which, as you remember, Saul, was...
Live and let die.
No,
Diamonds
the other
are
one.
forever.
No, you're going the wrong way. Go the other way.
One, only one. One foot in the grave. I'm 1 foot in the grave. On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
Saul, you're going the wrong way.
Moonraker.
No, that's next time.
Moonraker.
Who was in it?
It was Roger Moore and Christopher Lee. Brit
Golden
Oh,
gun!
the man with the golden gun.
Yes, that's the one. Well done. So, yes, this was the longest gap between Bond films since the series has started, because The Man with the Golden Gun was both a critical and commercial disappointment. The producers up until this point have been both Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman. This is the first film. Are you laughing, Sol?
Every time I hear that name, it's funny to me.
Nothing funny about Harry Saltzman.
Cubby broccoli.
Anyway, so Harry Saltzman made some bad investments and had to sell his share of the company. Cubby Broccoli took that up, and so he became the sole producer of the James Bond films.
Huh.
Yes, and which is why they kind of threw everything at this one, because the series had been kind of treading water since On Her Majesty's Secret Service, really. Like, they had to lure Connery back to be a big draw for Diamonds Are Forever, and Live and Let Die, I think, had the curiosity factor, and a lot of people wanted to see what the new guy was like. But yeah, the reception for The Man with the Golden Gun was not good. So there was a lot riding on this one at the time in 1977. And as each Roger Moore film previously has picked up on a trend of the time, namely blaxploitation and kung fu movies, can you guess what theme this one picked up on?
Spy movies.
Romance.
No.
Disco.
Think water.
Water.
What was like the biggest film of all time?
It's a
years
film
before.
about this giant man with teeth, and he attacks Richard Dreyfuss.
Anyway, yeah, so Jaws had been a big success for Steven Spielberg, and so this is the water Bond adventure, where there's a lot of stuff about water. There's a character called Jaws.
Couple of sharks.
I mean, that's a bold move, isn't it? You see a film that's a huge hit, you think, right, we want to emulate that, kind of rip it off, but we don't want anyone to know what we're doing. And then you just name a character after the film.
Well, Spielberg was considered as a choice for director for this film, but I think he was still...
Too good for it even then.
Well, no, he wanted to do it. He wanted to direct a Bond film. That's like where Indiana Jones came from.
So he thought, I could do this better, and did it better.
Yeah.
Well, actually, yes.
Would that not have been another Danny Boyle, do you not think, if he had signed on to do it? I can't see
at that stage in his career, I
Yeah,
I
but
don't know,
even
at that
then,
stage in
even
his
back
career,
then,
maybe.
I don't know.
I suppose he had just directed the most financially successful film of all time, so... Yeah. But anyway, they went back and got Lewis Gilbert from You Only Live Twice, which was one of the films which was one of the films that I think we all liked.
Calvin, name one Lewis Gilbert film that is not Bond related.
Alfie.
Ah, okay. Fair enough. Another?
Didn't he do Educating Rita as well? I feel like he did. For the guy who's done the most brass and audacious Bond films, he has quite a humble directorial career otherwise.
By humble, you mean good films?
Well, I mean low budget. Oh, okay. Is that setting the tone for this discussion then? Are you gonna plant your flag on the hill right away?
Well, today I watched a YouTube video of a very young, barely out of his teens, young man with erratic teeth, saying that this was possibly his favourite Bond film.
Yes.
So I think we might be in for a bit of conflict today.
I think this is going to be an interesting discussion.
I mean, it's often held up, isn't it, as, you know, the quintessential Bond film. I know this because of Alan Partridge.
Can I just sort of sum up my general feelings quite quickly here? That this film, it kind of did everything right. There was nothing sort of really bad about it, like there have been in the previous films. But it was just so bland and boring. Yeah. And I think this is what... And the fact that you really like it and you're the Bond guy suggests to me that this is Bond. This is what people want from Bond. And that does not bode well for the fact we've got another fucking 14 films to watch. Because if this is Bond done well, it's just boring.
This is a kind of Bond, don't forget. Things do change when we get to Timothy Dalton and... Daniel Craig, but certainly of the Roger Moore films, this is my favourite of his 7 films. Yes.
Okay.
Still to this day, like I did go into it, and I can see where you're coming from. I think there are stretches where nothing much happens. Some of it is a bit difficult to follow. The intricacies of the plot, I should say, anyway. I mean, in the broad strokes, it's just billionaire wants to take over the world for stupid reasons, and Bond has to go stop him. Sol, what did you think?
I think Alan pretty much nailed it there.
It's just bland, isn't it? It's just like there's nothing even like the shoddy editing they've had in previous films, and but this was fine as a film. It was fine.
That's kind of how I've always felt about the Bond franchise. I've always kind of looked at it as just a very bland thing that just doesn't interest me at all. I don't really know what people get out of it, and I just assumed, well, I need to watch them.
Do you not find it even remotely funny? Like, this one has some great bits in it.
Bits of it, but then I don't even know... It really is difficult for me to tell at what level it's being pitched a lot of the time. Like, the opening, we open on Bond in bed with another woman, and it's... I don't know, it's like Joey from Friends. It's just... yeah, that's, like, I don't know. Is it a joke that he's with this woman at the start, or is it kind of just, oh, look how cool he is?
I think it's a... bit of both.
It's kind of, it's kind of a joke because he's like, oh, sorry, love, I've just got to go and run away from these gunfighting people on some skis.
In a yellow jumpsuit, which is not the best thing to wear.
I struggle to know at what point it stops being a joke and becomes something we're meant to take seriously, and if the whole thing's kind of a joke, then it's not funny enough, and I struggle with it. And that's the franchise rather than this film specifically, but... Yeah, I mean, the opening was alright. Calvin, do you want to reenact the opening for us?
No, I'm not doing that. So it's basically Bond is in bed with a lady, and is chased by Russian folks, and then has to parachute off a cliff to escape them.
There's like a sound effect when he skis off that cliff and spins round, and it just looks... lame. It just looks really pathetic.
Yeah, it's not as bad as the slide whistle. Come on.
I must admit, that stunt was really cool. I thought it was great. It looked great. Not least because that's a bloke jumping off a cliff and parachuting off. You can tell it's real. It must be a pretty low base jump as things go. Like, that's actually a pretty impressive stunt.
But... my note here basically is that would have been such a cool opening if it looked remotely like a mistake, or like he didn't want to go over the edge. The way it's put together just looks like he does it on purpose, which obviously he does, but we're meant to think, oh God, he's going to die. James Bond's going to die. And it doesn't play like that at all.
It does.
No, it doesn't at all. It's like a man skis off the edge and you think, yep, he's skied off the edge. It's James Bond. Oh, and there's his parachute. That harness just appeared on him out of nowhere. That wasn't there a minute ago, man.
It's definitely one of those things where these days it would be so much easier to shoot. You'd have a cameraman on skis, and you'd get proper close-ups of an actor, like rather than crappy sort of back projection stuff, and you could get him to actually act so you can get some sense of it. Feeling
it just looks like you're watching a stuntman do a very intentional ski, or like controlled ski off the side of a cliff, which is it's cool, but it just doesn't.
I don't think that you're ever going to get believability when it comes to physical stunts from Roger Moore, though. It's like no amount of editing or trickery can convince me that he's actually doing any of these stunts. Like perhaps, I can imagine Connery getting involved a bit, and Dalton later on, certainly.
Is Cubby Broccoli British?
No, he's American. Well, Italian-American. His,
Hey, it's me, Cubby Broccoli. Ding dong.
Oh, it's Italian-American Cubby Broccoli.
Yeah, he just invited himself in. I didn't even open the door.
His family were the people that brought broccoli to America.
Hey, we love a steamed vegetables here, us broccolis, eh? Broccoli pizza, because we're Italian-Americans. I'm Gru.
There you go.
Calvin, I've always imagined Cubby Broccoli. I don't know what he looks like. I don't really know anything about him apart from his silly name. I've always imagined him as a kind of classic film producer, molesting young
coked
actors.
Up to the teeth.
Yeah. That's how
Balding.
I imagine him. In the classic Hollywood sense, obviously.
A baseball
He was
cap.
very happily married.
Yeah. And
No evidence to suggest otherwise.
I'm not saying there's evidence, but that's what I imagine. I imagine like quite a stocky, fat guy with a cigar. Like Weinstein-esque,
correct,
basically.
Yeah, and
is
it's a
what I'm
happy
saying.
marriage because they've got what's the word?
Agreement?
An agreement, yeah.
An unspoken agreement that he'll give her money and shag anyone he wants.
Oh, come now. That's so...
As long as he doesn't like rub a nose in it, that's the rules.
All the broccoli she can eat.
No. I mean, just unfounded accusations.
It's not an accusation.
Nothing.
It's not an accusation because I don't know anything about it. I'm saying that's the picture I get with Bond film producer Cubby Broccoli with that stupid name.
I'm gonna
what
Google
I'm
image
imagining.
him though, and then I'm gonna make up a load of stuff based on what he looks like.
Well, anyway, there's actually a story about, I think it was on this film, where he was known for sort of treating members of the cast and crew very well on set, in terms of food and drink and stuff, and actors will often say, there was no such thing as prop champagne on a Bond film, it all just was champagne, and you'd just be drinking that.
It's very unprofessional.
But, apparently when they were filming, I think were they filming in the desert here or something? And then the food truck, which was supposed to be bringing a load of food from Britain, arrived and it was empty because someone had stolen it or something.
Tea.
So Cubby Broccoli took over a small restaurant and made a big vat of pasta and sauce for everyone.
Cutting the garlic with a razor blade and stuff like that.
Anyway, yeah.
Hey, come here. You never know when you have to make pasta for 30,000 people. Come on.
See, I'd always just imagined a piece of broccoli in a suit.
See, Cubby Broccoli sounds to me like a 1930s baseball player who's fondly remembers.
How does he talk then? How accurate are impressions of him? Hey, whoa!
I mean,
hey,
I'm
it's
making
me,
the Bond
Bond
over here. Yay, yo! Hey, let's get some fucking cocaine over here!
He talks a bit more like Marlon Brando in The Godfather.
Hey!
Like that kind of...
Hey, let's get some fucking cocaine over here on set. Cocaine on aisle 3, am I right, guys? We're making a fucking Bond over here!
Unfounded innuendo. Like, him and Roger Moore loved playing backgammon. Or in between breaks,
yeah,
and
I
bridge.
fucking love a game of backgammon with my my princess here. I've just been introduced to her. We love a game of backgammon, don't we, honey? Yeah. I'll show you some tricks of the trade later.
That's right, Mr. Broccoli.
It's just... Anyway.
Hey, I'm a happily married man, and I resent those accusations you're making, Mr. Dyson.
So you guys like music. What did you think of the theme song to this particular film?
Wait a minute.
I love
resent
disco
that
music.
accusation. I do not like music. And, but it's quite a good song. I like this one.
Which one's this? Oh, the Nobody Does It. Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
I really like the opening titles to this film.
Yes.
I think it's the first Bond film where I've really gone, all right, yeah, this is kind of what I want from a Bond opening sequence.
I completely agree. I think of the ones done by Maurice Binder, who did most of these Bond films up until, I think, License to Kill. I think this is the best.
Well, I like, this feels like the first Bond film that's really embraced just being trippy. And I like that. The way the women kind of slide across the floor, even though like it's not in sync with the feet moving, and how it's like it seems to be one woman who's been doubled up about 10 times, and I like it. I like that.
I think Maurice had access to more optical effects or something. It's
How many times have you watched this film, Calvin? A realistic estimate.
It is probably about 60, 70.
Fucking hell.
I must watch it at least twice a year.
Jesus.
What?
That's just... I was going to say I haven't watched something that many times, and I couldn't even think of anything relate on any level. I don't think I've watched the film 6 times.
So what do we think of the villain? It's not long after the credit sequence that we're introduced to him.
So you get a German actor, and that's it, isn't it? Is that the whole process?
Well, I was about to say that despite this being one of my favourite films in the series, I'm really not keen on this villain, Karl Stromberg.
Yeah, it's pretty boring.
I honestly can't remember the villain at all, what he looks like, what he does.
It was originally supposed to be Blofeld, but because of all the legal wranglings meant that Blofeld couldn't reappear. So we have... Well remembered, Alan. So we have this man instead, who is apparently a very good actor, and I don't doubt that, but not in this part.
I've Google imaged him, and it's pulled up like 12 pictures of him, and I still can't remember anything about this character.
But yeah, even his death is kind of anticlimactic and quite not spectacular, although very brutal. It's very much just Bond shoots him dead. It's kind of like that's quite brutal for Bond. It's usually like he accidentally trips and falls into a vat of acid, doesn't he?
Well, yeah, it's at the end of the film, of course, and he has Stromberg has this huge long table in this room with very bad back projected images of the sea. Well, not even the sea, is it? It's like someone put a camera next to a jug of water and poured water in and out, and that's what they filmed to simulate the base going up and down out of the sea. But yeah, no, he's got this big long gun underneath the table that he tries to shoot Bond, and then Bond just shoots down it, presumably to Stromberg's groin.
Oh, straight into his balls, yeah.
And then it's just a very awkward, slow... He shoots him a couple more times, then he sort of slides down the side of the table. It's, yeah.
I've made a note about one of the earliest scenes with Stromberg, where we see... They do the classic thing of the villain being a villain to other villains.
Yes.
And he sends that guy off on a helicopter home or something.
Yeah.
2 of them, yeah.
And then he says, cancel transfer of $20 million.
Yes.
And then blows up the helicopter.
No, he blows up the helicopter and then...
But I've got a question. If you were going to blow up the fucking helicopter so you don't have to pay the guy, why would you even arrange a transfer of $20 million in the first place?
Look, we don't know what situation they were in previously. Maybe, he didn't want them to cotton on to the fact that he was going to kill them, and they were in a meeting with a bunch of other people.
Why has he wasted a good helicopter there?
Well, that's the other thing. Why
shoot
didn't
him
you
in the
just
back of the
shoot
head
him?
and then knock him into the sea?
Exactly.
What about that helicopter pilot? Eh?
Yeah.
What has he done? Has he betrayed him?
He
as
was
well?
in on it too, obviously.
Was the helicopter
Why
in on
couldn't
it?
he just... Why has he got to, trick the guy into thinking he's going to that specific point? Doesn't make any fucking sense. There's no logic,
because he's
reason or rhyme to it.
sadistic.
But that's... If he's sadistic, he makes them think they're going to be okay and then kills them
He
slowly.
does.
They die quickly and...
Yeah,
He
so that
does.
isn't sadistic. If he was sadistic, he'd torture them a bit.
Chain them up.
He'd tell them, now you're never going to leave this island. Mwahaha. And
It's more about personal amusement, I think.
I mean, it's bloody expensive bit of personal amusement.
You're saying that blowing up a helicopter is an expense for the guy who has like a 20-story structure which can rise and sink into the sea at the flick of a switch. Like,
if you're into personal amusement, then like have the people dropped off on an island and hunt them. I mean, you can get if you're gonna be spending money on getting some people killed, you can and revel in it. You can enjoy it more than that.
So, should we talk about Jaws?
I mean, he's back, isn't he? Or is this his first one?
Yes.
Does come back several times in the film, though.
Is this his first one? Wasn't he in Live and Let Die?
No.
Who was that?
That was Sean
Baron
Connery.
Samedi, perhaps, or Teehee? No, that was Roger Moore.
Who is it who comes back at the end to get him on a train? Is that not Jaws?
No, that's Teehee. He's got a hook. Do you remember?
He looks a lot like him, though.
No, he doesn't. Not at all. He's black.
Can I ask Cubby Broccoli a question? Is he still here?
Cubby?
He's chewing on some pasta.
Passed out. It's all that cocaine. I'm just going to give him an adrenaline shot.
He's coming down hard.
Hey, whoa! You stabbed my heart with that adrenaline shot. He sounds like Yogi Bear.
Hey, Cubby, a quick
Hey!
question.
Hey!
How
What's
do you
going on?
feel? How do you feel about the idea of a black James Bond?
Hey, if that whatever brings in the moolah from all the guys and all the ladies, Cubby don't discriminate, my man.
Where are you from, Cubby?
I'm from the US of A. But I'm a hip happening cat, as you will recognize when you watch The Spy Who Loved Me and listen to the soundtrack on vinyl record.
Speaking of music, there's some very funky slap bass Bond.
Oh,
going on
yeah.
in this film.
Yeah. They got Marvin Hamlish, and some of it's very funky. At this point in the series, they seem to be alternating between one-off composers and John Barry, so this was a one-off turn. I'm not gonna lie, while I like some of the tracks in isolation, it's very unbecoming of a Bond film.
Yeah, that's exactly my note. I'm not against the music. I quite like disco music. It has no place within this film. Like, not even it has no place within James Bond, but like it's used in such incongruous places in this film. It's so jarring every time it happens.
So, we have an interesting Bond girl for once.
I don't remember her at all.
Anya Amasova, Agent XXX, Russian agent, Ringo
Vin
Starr's
Diesel?
wife.
Yeah, Barbara Bach.
Yes.
She's pretty good, actually. As Bond girls go, she's quite a strong character. Decent enough actor to get away with it without having to do anything too strenuous.
She wasn't dubbed in, was she?
No.
Although she was
Remote.
not using her own voice. It's just this dodgy Russian accent she's doing.
Yes. But yeah, no, it's the first time. It seems like such an obvious thing to pair Bond up with. He's paired up with Tatiana from Russia with Love, was a Russian agent, but he's never really been paired up with a true equal like Anya is. I mean, granted, she still needs saving at the end, but
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if I'd call her a true equal exactly, but...
well, yeah, she does all the things that Bond can do. She drinks, she fights, she's a spy, she's sleeping with... Well, we see her sleeping with one guy at the start of the film. So I'm getting the positive vibes on her from you guys, because her acting is
solid.
quite wooden.
But compared to Bond girls, good. But, compared to actors, nothing special.
Fair enough.
I've made a note here, and I have no idea at what point it relates to anything, but I'm hoping you'll be able to go, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about there. My note is, it really looks like Bond used that woman as a human shield intentionally when he got shot at.
Yes. Yeah, Bond is dispatched to get more information about this missing submarine, and he's about to be shot, and then she, I assume, has a moment of conscience or clarity or something, and decides to throw herself in the path of the bullet, but how it's shot, it just looks like Bond used her as a human shield.
Because if she's in on it and she throws herself in front of it doesn't make any sense. We don't know who the character is. We don't know
Yeah,
anything.
I didn't get that at all.
None of it makes any sense.
But we do get a nice cold kill from Roger Moore when the guy's like dangling off the side of the roof and holding onto Bond's tie.
He chops his head off with a single blow of an axe.
No, he just hits the guy's hand and he falls to his death.
Oh, shit.
I thought that was good. Roger Moore doesn't normally get those kind of cold moments.
But then he spent like an hour trying to like undo his tie afterwards because it had been pulled so tightly, like picking at it with his teeth, just fiddling at it.
In the end, just cut it off and forget it. Yeah. Got all the ties.
You know, the audio commentaries for this one and Moonraker both had very similar production people behind it, and including the same writer, Christopher Wood. And he's very, in interviews, he's this very Shakespearean sounding, very posh and all this kind of stuff. And he does this group commentary with like associate producer or something who's just very much, oh yeah, you know, James Bond slaps lady on the arse, no problem with that. We want a shot of a pigeon doing a double take, yeah, just give me some glue and a pigeon and a plank of wood and jobs are good. But more on that next week. But yeah, the writer for the film is often lamenting about like, oh, I wrote this line and it changed when it came in and all this kind of stuff. I wasn't on set when they filmed this. Well,
that's it, yeah. I mean, they had to translate it into German so the actor could do it, and then got translated back for the ADR, and, you know, it gets lost, doesn't it?
Well, talking about wonderful writing...
Were we? I thought we were talking about James Bond.
Oh.
All those feathers and he still can't fly.
Oh, God.
Look, some of the one-liners aren't that great.
Even that many feathers.
But, I mean, what does that say about James Bond?
Some of the lines here is particularly bad. And one of my notes is, Bond really is a tosser. And I think that was relating to when him and the woman were confronting Jaws somewhere in a desert, and then they were trying to get out in a van, and Jaws was like ripping it apart, and he's just like, she's trying to get away and drive, and he's just like throwing in snarky comments like, either help or shut up.
I love that scene.
You're not.
I love that scene.
You're just winding her up when she's trying to save
you.
He's like.
He like gets the keys out on a ring and he's like going through them delicately, and then she's like, the keys, and
yeah, because they're about to be murdered by a giant man with teeth.
Yes, but Bond, you know, it's not realism. It's fine. It's like Roger Moore's winking at the camera and coming out with lines like, "Can it play any other tune?" after she puts it into the wrong gear, and you know.
A quick question, Calvin? At what point did they decide that Jaws was such a great villain that they wanted to bring him back and then therefore have him survive at the end?
Well, you know, they say that they filmed an ending where he actually died, but I've never actually seen it nor any stills of it. And the director talks about like how kids wrote in saying how much they loved Jaws, so they decided to let him live. But then I don't really understand how.
When did the kids see it?
Well, that's exactly it. So there's some vagueness there. I don't know. I can only assume that at some point during filming, you know, they all decided that they really liked him and
I could
come back.
I can completely buy that everyone involved higher up the ladder in the production of old Bond films is a compulsive liar. That does just ring true for some reason, doesn't it? The director, all the producers. Hey, I invented broccoli. All right. Should we talk about arguably the most iconic part of the film?
The underwater car, the Lotus Esprit.
Yeah. This is like, I never liked Thunderbirds as a kid because it would just be like interminable, prolonged shots of vehicles, and I'd just be like, I don't care.
It's the stunts, though. It's the shots. It's what I mean. There's some remarkable shots in here. There's one of my favorite shots where it's like the Lotus is zooming along and the camera's following it, and the helicopter just like appears right next to it from under the.
That's a great shot.
bank.
Yeah, no, that's really good.
I think it's quite cool. You know, they drive into the water, and then it's like whoop 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 whoop, and it turns into a submarine type of thing. That's a cool concept. I think especially in the 70s, it's like, oh yeah.
I was going to say, it feels very dated. It just feels like, what, and that's it. But in the 70s, that was probably really mind-blowing, wasn't it?
I wanted to ask you something, Calvin, slightly more general than this, but about cars in the James Bond world, because you're not someone I associate with as being a real car person. But you do fetishize the cars in James Bond in the way that people do. Now, I think Saul's with me here that I just don't understand cars at all. I've never owned one. I don't particularly get a boner looking at them. So why?
Oh, it's a means to an end for me, absolutely.
Yeah, it's a good practical tool, obviously, but it's. What is it with ooh, this is shiny, this has got a nice
I don't think
front
Calvin
end
knows
and all that
either.
sort of stuff.
Because I think Calvin's love of
is this
cars
like when Calvin admires the women in James Bond? He doesn't know why.
Exactly. I think it's purely because James Bond's into it. It's like if Electric Six cover a song by Captain Beefheart, I'll be like, oh, this is a really cool song by Captain Beefheart. But then I'll listen to the rest of the Captain Beefheart album, and I'm like, I'm not really interested. If Electric Six aren't going to cover it, it just doesn't.
Who's Captain Beefheart?
An old musician who is dead.
But to answer your question, Alan, from a James Bond perspective, it's certainly the fantasy element of having cars which can do these amazing things and all the gadgets and stuff.
So if it was just a cool Aston Martin, you wouldn't be particularly bothered about that?
I mean, I like Aston Martins a lot, but that's probably just because of, Stockholm Syndrome and product placement has worked.
I've walked down the street with Calvin, and he's the only person I think I've ever witnessed this with, where a nice car's driven past, and he's gone, oh, look at that car. But I think it must have been a car from a Bond movie.
Yes, it will have been.
Yeah.
But I think potentially the problem with the Lotus Esprit in this film here is that it looks so 70s, and it just feels really dated now. Whereas you look at a classic Aston Martin or a Jaguar or something like that, there's something timeless about it because it's this very cool style that they have.
I don't know. I think it's a throwback to the 70s. I think it's got I think it's a decent looking.
It looks
car.
very 70s though, doesn't it? That's what I mean. It's.
I think that this film, out of perhaps even all the Bond films, has aged the worst. I think there's something. Maybe it's just a sign of the time that we're currently living in, where the 60s have this sort of timeless appeal to them, whereas you get to the 70s and Roger Moore's coming out in flares and these very long collared.
Cubby's coked up to the tits,
There was a scene in here where he was wearing white linen trousers and a black blazer, and I was like, "What's that about?"
Stylish man.
Why is he wearing a shirt and tie in the Bahamas?
Talking about this film aging badly as well, I do feel that this taking on a kind of status as the definitive Bond film has led to it being perhaps the most imitated and parodied, and therefore that's removed a lot of the impact the cool and surprising moments might have otherwise had. I don't know.
Just to quickly go back to the car submarine.
Yeah.
Obviously, when it drives out,
I was going to say my favourite
on
part
a
of the
beach, there is obviously everyone that is there is very shocked, and in fact, we have the perfect shocked trifecta of a man cigar falling out of his mouth, a man drinking, looking at the bottle and going, "Whoa," and then
a pigeon does a double take.
And then there's a dog. Obviously, what should have happened is the dog dramatically puts its paw over its own eyes. Unfortunately, they just went with a dog runs away in mock horror kind of thing. So it wasn't quite perfect, but it was so close.
What other ones were deleted, Calvin? You've seen the deleted scenes. Was there a chimp putting its head in its hands?
Was there a woman who covered her child's eyes?
Was there an 8-year-old boy who's blowing a bubble with some bubble gum and then it pops all over his face?
And then, was there a guy who's smoking a joint who went, "Whoa, dude!"
Was there a traffic policeman blowing a whistle and guiding traffic through, who turns his head as a shadow drives past him and then the whistle falls out of his mouth?
You were actually describing moments from future Bond films. I look forward to discovering these moments with you both. Yeah.
Is there a robot watching and then sparks begin to fly and the head explodes off? It goes, "Does not compute."
I think it was great restraint for them not to have a fish double taking. I think that's something that they might have actually done. Anyway, yeah, love that sequence. Think of you, Saul, every time I see that guy chugging from his wine bottle. And
that is my favourite.
Sat at the beach on his own, drinking a bottle of wine.
We'll see him in the next 2 films.
Is it the same guy?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's fantastic. I didn't realise.
He was he was like an assistant director for the locations in Italy.
That's
and they went to Italy for the next 2 films, so he has the pleasure of appearing more.
Roger Moore.
I'm trying to think if there's something we haven't spoken about yet.
There's the bit where this giant sort of tanker ship opens up and swallows a submarine.
Right, yes,
now,
that's the big villain ship thing.
Just a quick question. Wouldn't the obvious defense to that be go underwater if you're in a submarine? Like, rather than staying on the surface where it can scoop you up?
It's a good question.
Because it didn't even seem to be suggested. It's not like, we haven't got time to submerge, we're only a submarine,
No, it's there, what do you do? I mean, Bond's ship can be excused because they wanted to be captured. They wanted to get into the same spot. Did you notice parallels with You Only Live Twice, by the way? Like, that whole film was about space shuttles being swallowed up, taken to the villain's lair, and it's more or less the same thing here, but with nuclear submarines.
I mean, yeah, like every Bond film I ever watched just feels like, oh, it's more of the same thing. So,
Now, I do know that they built a new soundstage at Pinewood Studios to do all this shit because they couldn't find a place big enough. Now that is pretty impressive, and it's still there. I mean, the 007 stage is still at Pinewood, and that shows the pull that Bond had at this point, doesn't it? If you're creating your own studio spaces because nothing's big enough for you.
And the amount of stuff that they do on that set as well. I mean, moving submarines in and out, the water that's in there, explosions. It's a very impressive set. It doesn't have the fun campiness of the volcano lair, I don't think, from You Only Live Twice, but it is an impressive set nonetheless.
needed a cat going mental.
There's a bit that always, like, because there's this big battle at the end. Bond releases all of the submarine crewmen and they all, band together. But there's this curious bit where this, young...
I was laughing because you said crewmen instead of seamen.
I didn't want to say it. Anyway, there's a bit where this, the Bond and this senior
Bond
guy
releases
a
lot of semen. Wait, not Bond. Who is it?
Stromberg releases them. No, Stromberg swallows up the semen.
Who is it who releases all the semen?
Bond.
Bond just gushes out a load of semen everywhere.
Anyway.
All over the place. Stromberg's furious. He's like, there's semen everywhere.
Bond's there with this more senior man. And him and this guy are sort of saying, like, oh, we'll never get behind that. It's impregnable.
We haven't got enough semen to impregnate this thing.
Anyway, this young guy appears and he's like, right, no worries, sir, I'll do it.
And then 30 seconds later, he's dead.
Yeah, and then he's dead. But it's such an odd little detour. It's like, I don't know if we needed that bit of film to explain to us that the control room truly was impregnable, or whether
they just hadn't tried hard enough.
Yeah.
My next note is Jaws' mouth getting stuck to a magnet, and then James Bond says, probably the worst effort pun they've ever had.
How does that grab you?
Appalling.
That's not as bad as some of the others. At least it makes
It's not even related to magnets
level.
or metal or teeth. It's not even relevant.
Okay, do something better. Let's workshop it.
He could have gone, oh, I always said you had a magnetic personality. And
See,
magnifying.
That doesn't fit the situation though. At least, how does that grab you? Because the thing's just grabbed him. It makes sense.
And they already did the magnetic puns in Live and Let Die when he says "pure magnetism, darling" to that lady when he's using his watch to undress her.
It's gonna be something about biting.
Talk about chewing the scenery.
I think dentist.
Yeah. Have you got the time? Or I didn't realise it was 2:30 already. Perfect. Nailed it.
Anyway, so there's a bit of conflict in this whole last third because Bond killed Triple X's boyfriend at the start of the film, and now she found out, and she wants,
she's gonna kill
revenge,
him.
I suppose. Of course she doesn't. They just have sex instead.
It just seems like such a missed opportunity. I was convinced he was going to pop the champagne cork, into her head after she pulled the gun out on him, and it was going to be this cool, think fast and pop and overpower.
How
her,
would he have sex with her if she was comatose?
Yeah, well, exactly. I wasn't thinking how's he going to fuck her. I was thinking, what could he do to get out?
Do you think that would stop James Bond? No.
I love the ending of this film. I think it goes you remember, of course, in You Only Live Twice when he's on the sex raft with the Bond girl at the end.
Was
of
it
that
the
one,
official
the submarine.
sex raft of the ship?
Yeah, so it was good that they just did the same thing again, wasn't it?
No, they didn't just do the same thing again. They went one step further and actually had him in front of his senior officers so that they could all go, Bond, good lord, man, what the hell do you think you're doing, and all that.
Do they not know? They don't know what he is.
And then
his reputation.
And that fucking musical cue at the end.
Nobody does. It better.
No, you're making it too cool. It's like a load of salty seamen chanting it.
We can all do it in sync.
Okay.
3, 2, 1.
Nobody does it better.
I hated it. I was so angry when those salty seamen started singing "Nobody Does It Better."
I used to really love that ending theme, but since Brexit, I've not been able to enjoy it as much. It's same thing with the Union Jack parachute opening at the start. There's something about the nationalism now that just really rubs me up the wrong way.
Well, it's a silly concept, isn't it?
Yeah. What, nationalism or the parachute?
Nationalism.
Oh, yeah, the parachute's fine. I'm disappointed that you guys can't really have fun with these films. I've
been having loads of fun laughing about seamen.
But there you go. You have had a good time.
Yeah, not watching the film.
Well, I have. I think it's great. I think it's one of the very best of the series.
Is it one of the best, or is it the best, Calvin?
One of. Should we do ratings?
5 out of 10 from me.
Yeah, I gave it a 5. It was bland 5, middle of the road, whatever.
I'm going to go 9. It's a great film. Very, very good.
Wait, so the best Bond film doesn't get a 10 from you?
No, this isn't the best.
Oh, okay.
We'll get there.
Okay, so what now?
Well, you normally do pitches at this point, don't we?
Go on
yeah,
then,
I forgot
Calvin,
about
do
that.
as a pitch.
Jaws 5. Jaws versus Jaws. Do either of you guys have any ideas for potential sequels?
But the problem is that there's so little to go on in this film that, what do you do?
Let's see, The Spy Who Loved Me, James Bond, Spy
What about
Who
The
Loved...
Spy Who Shagged Me? And we'll make it really raunchy and funny.
What about The Spy Who Dumped Me, and we'll do it from a female perspective as a comedy?
Wait, isn't that already a thing?
Whoa, this guy.
But The Spy Who Shagged Me is an original idea that no one's ever done. The Spy Who X'd Me has become a surprisingly famous sort of go-to.
So what can we come up with then that would be new and fresh? The Spy Who Shrunk Me? With Rick Moranis?
No, that's brilliant. Okay, so Bond's in Q's laboratory. Q's working on a new gadget.
A shrink
He's
ray.
Bond, what are you doing?
I mean, I'm really into this idea of chimp Bond that was mentioned earlier. Can we get that in here somewhere?
Would it be Bond working with a chimp as an assistant, or Chimp Bond?
Well, there was a film with Spy Mate, I think it was called, that did that.
Spy Mate?
Really?
It must have been called Spy Mate, yeah.
Okay, so if Chimp James Bond has already been done, so can we have where Chimp is the love interest? He shags the chimp.
What, the chimp who loved me? The Spy Mate who loved me?
What's that film?
Oh, Max Mi Amor. It's like a well-respected French film, but it's about a woman falling in love with a chimp. Charlotte Rampling.
Yeah, of course it's Charlotte
Anthony
Rampling.
Higgins.
It's a French film about sex.
Yeah, here we are. Plot description. A married French woman takes a zoo chimp named Max to be her lover.
Is it a comedy?
IMDb says it is, yes.
Oh.
Okay, I think the chimp thing has been done to death, unfortunately. We might need to find a new avenue. What about a James Bond film, but all the characters are puppies?
Oh, that's
Bond
a good idea.
buddies.
Called Air Bondies, or whatever.
Buddies.
What kind of dog would Bond be?
Yeah, okay, here's your pitch. What kind of dog is X? Okay, right.
All right, so it's
I
the
don't know
latest...
much about dogs. What dog would one be, right? Quite massive, kind of... No, the queen would be a corgi.
He'd be like a chocolate Labrador or something.
No, it's too...
Are we
pleasant.
ready for a chocolate Labrador Bond? Or should we have a golden retriever?
A golden retriever. It's too pleasant. It's too nice an animal. We need like a dirty dog for Bond. We need someone who's a bit more...
No, because he's not. He doesn't have that appearance, does he?
Well, he's prim and proper. Bond would be more like, prim and proper, but not as, like, obviously lovable. I mean, it's still lovable, but not like... Labradors are just too... You want to give them a cuddle, whereas Bond would be like one of those Scotty dogs, but bigger. Do you know what I mean? Kind of more chiseled and...
That's the Sean Connery dog, Bond dog.
Split the difference between a Scotty dog and a Great Dane.
Ooh, okay.
What
I can
are we
get behind
talking
that.
there? Like a collie is a bit too scruffy as well. It's too a working class looking dog. Should we come back to Bond? Should we do the villains?
Okay.
What
Okay,
would Blofeld be?
So our
Yeah, let's
Bond-
not do the villain in this film because he's boring. So let's do
Yeah.
the famous villains. Yeah, Blofeld.
I mean, Jaws is easy. Jaws is an Alsatian.
Can we have a hairless cat for Blofeld, or is that... Oh no, a dog that strokes a cat.
Yeah, of course. It was right before our eyes. Yeah, hairless cat for Blofeld. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah, of course the villains would be cats, wouldn't they? Yeah. Who else have we got? Oh, yeah, who's the sexy lady dog?
Now, sexy lady dog can be one of those, like a female golden retriever type thing, but one of those smaller ones.
Have you seen Isle of Dogs? There's one in that.
Yeah, whatever
they basically
Scarlett
do the exact
Johansson's
same thing.
dog is. What kind of breed
That
is Scarlett Johansson in Isle of Dogs?
That can be like the main Bond girl, but we need like another couple for him to sleep with before he gets to that one. Like one of them needs to die, and they need to.
One
be
of them
foreign,
needs to
and
be foreign.
Their
like a
barks
little
can be
Chinese
dubbed by
dog.
English dogs.
You know the start of 101 Dalmatians?
Yes.
And it's doing all the dogs that look like their owners.
Mm.
And there's one that's quite a lanky one that looks like it's owned by a librarian.
Is that the Afghan hound? Because they've got very long hair. Because that's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah. I think Bond would sleep with one of them.
That's quite 70s, actually, right? Skinny, long, straight hair. It's very 70s style.
Yeah.
What about, all your henchmen? You need, like, one type of dog for all the henchmen. Or all the seamen.
Jack Russell? German Shepherd?
Oh, no, Jack Russells are too nice. Probably would be a German Shepherd sort of thing. But
Depends
I
how
like
menacing
German
you are.
Shepherd.
German Shepherd would be for... No, like Jaws, one of the big, like, boss henchmen would be a German Shepherd. I think you need a boxer or... Oh, what's that
Doberman.
What's that dog that looks like it's had its face smacked in with a brick that, like the most working class British dog?
Oh, the Staffy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be one of the villains.
Fucking
That'd be the
horrible
Blofeld.
Yeah.
It looks like Donald Pleasance.
What about M? What's an M?
Bulldog?
This is your classic M, like a white middle-class man. None of your Judi Dench nonsense.
Poodle.
Judi Dench should be a pug.
Moneypenny would be one of those little yappy things.
Because Moneypenny's got to be nice, like a nice feminine dog, but just a little bit over the hill.
A Pomeranian for Moneypenny.
Cavalier King Charles Spaniel.
I think dogs are just like all the nice dogs are just a bit too dopey to like take seriously, and then all the other ones, it's like they're too menacing to be to look right in a tux.
What is the perfect dog Bond? Write in and let us know, because we can't figure it out. I don't know anything about dogs, so I'm no help.
Oh, he's a Dalmatian. It's like a fancy breed. It's one of those like show dog breeds, but it's big
and he's deaf and got bad hips.
I think you've got it right with Dalmatian, because they're not too cute, but they're quite attractive.
Yeah,
They're a
they're
good
like a
size.
show dog. Prim and proper, but big.
Mixed race.
Probably menacing enough if it came at you.
I think I'd quite like a Dalmatian, actually, if I were to get a dog. Oh, no, actually, I wouldn't. No. I spent the weekend with a lovely dog. I can't remember what breed it was. I kept calling it a chocolate Labrador, but it wasn't. It was like a chocolate Labrador
brown
crossed
dog.
with a something.
I think Chocolate Labrador, one of the best dogs.
Well, yes, because you had one.
Yeah, but it is one of the best.
I think it was like a Labrador crossed with a German Shepherd or a Retriever or something like that. It was quite a beautiful dog. Or in fact, I'm looking at pictures of retrievers now. Chocolate Lab Golden Retriever. Yep, that's it. Chocolate Lab Golden Retriever, and it was lovely.
No, as my mum always says, all dogs should be dead. Yeah. Thank you for listening, and if you know anything about dogs, then go ahead and make your suggestions at our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/Diminishing Returns podcast. And if you haven't already, please review us on iTunes. It's very important. And come back next week because, well, it's October, so I guess things are going to start getting spooky.